Easter Sunday. The sanctuary glowed with lilies and light. Pastor Donald rose to the pulpit, his sermon veering sharp.
We celebrate resurrection, but we forget that not all are worthy of new life.
His eyes found Karen Reeves, seated between her two children in the fifth pew.
Some among us treat divorce like a canceled magazine subscription, something to be replaced without consequence.
He's circling. He's been circling for weeks. But here, on Easter, with my children, he wouldn't.
Jacob's tie suddenly felt too tight. Olivia's hand crept into her mother's, cold and small.
A certain woman in this room has whispered about remarriage, as though the covenant meant nothing.
Karen's knuckles whitened around the folded program. She did not stand. She did not cry.
I will not give him the satisfaction. I will not leave and let them whisper that I ran.
The congregation stared at the floor, an ocean of bowed heads. No one met her eyes. No one spoke. 5 years before that Easter, Karen Reeves had been a different woman, hollow from a divorce that stripped her raw.
You think any man will want a used-up mother of two? You'll crawl back, and I might let you.
39, 2 kids, no career. I hadn't set foot in church since my wedding.
A Wednesday night prayer meeting pulled her back. The sanctuary silence felt like a held breath.
I was a faithful wife. I kept the house, I prayed, and still he tore me apart.
A soft hand touched her shoulder. Linda Donald, the pastor's wife, had seen her crumble.
You don't have to carry this alone, honey. Come to the kitchen. I'll fix you some tea.
In the cluttered kitchen, over mugs of chamomile, Karen told Linda everything: Marcus's affair, the threats, the shame.
Your secrets are safe with me, Karen. I'll pray for you every day.
Now, with those same secrets twisted into weapons from the pulpit, Karen understood how foolish her trust had been. 3 Sundays before Easter, the pastor's aim narrowed.
There are those among us who wear the mask of piety while their private lives are a scandal.
By Monday, Jacob and Olivia heard the same poison at school.
Mom, a boy said you tried to steal someone's husband. I know it's not true, but why would he say that?
Karen, sometimes a fresh start somewhere else is the most godly choice. Have you prayed about that?
That afternoon, she found Linda in the parsonage kitchen, Donald leaning against the counter, arms crossed.
People talk, Karen. I didn't start anything. You can't blame me for your reputation.
He was right there, drinking it in. She wouldn't say the truth in front of him.
Thomas Ellison stayed late at the church office, comparing deposit slips to the building fund ledger. $5,000 to a holding company. Signed by Donald. No board approval. This is just the first. A week before Easter, Karen's phone lit up with a number she had erased years ago. Marcus.
Heard you're the town's new cautionary tale. The Reverend must really enjoy your Sunday confessions.
He knows. Details I told only Linda. She fed him everything.
She hung up without a word, the kitchen tiles cold under her bare feet. The leak was in the parsonage. That same evening, Thomas uncovered a second charge, a Bahamas timeshare paid from the building fund. Never approved, never mentioned. The man's been vacationing on the congregation's offerings. Then he found the monthly lease on a Lexus, and another transfer to the same mysterious account. He photocopied everything, 3 months of bank records, 6 months of credit card bills, and locked the originals in his safe.
I will walk into that service with my head up. He doesn't get to chase me out.
Thomas stared at the bulging folder on his desk. He still didn't know when he would use it. On Easter morning, Karen pressed her lavender cross brooch into place and faced her children's anxious eyes. The drive to First Baptist was a quiet procession of dread. In the parking lot, familiar faces became cold statues, no greetings, only averted glances. The Reeves family slid into the fifth pew like they used to. Now it felt like a dock in a storm. Pastor Donald caught her eye from the vestibule. His smile was warm as candle wax, soft and dripping with something else. The processional hymn swelled, and Karen felt the press of 1,000 unspoken accusations.
He wouldn't dare. Not on Easter. Not in front of everyone.
Thomas Ellison sat rigid in the front row, the folder pressing like a stone against his ribs. Pastor Donald ascended the pulpit steps, Bible in hand, and the sanctuary fell silent.
This is it. God, give me the strength to stay in this pew.
Pastor Donald opened to a well-thumbed page. His voice dropped to a hiss of false sorrow.
A certain woman sitting here today has thought she could replace her husband the way you'd trade in a kitchen appliance.
Jacob's hand clamped onto his mother's wrist. Olivia's face went white as the Easter lilies.
She thought a few miles of highway could hide her shameful conversations, but the Lord sees all negotiations of the heart.
He knows about the lunch in Westby. Linda told him. That was 3 weeks ago. She fed him every word.
The congregation didn't breathe. Every face found something fascinating in the carpet.
And so we pray for the stubborn, that they might learn humility before their seat is given to another.
He wants me to run. He wants me to sob and bolt. I will not give him the dignity of a tear.
She sat frozen, a statue of salt, while the organist fumbled for the next hymn number. Pastor Donald smiled like a man who had just collected a debt. He turned his page and announced the closing hymn. The last note of the closing hymn hung in the air, and Pastor Donald raised his hands for the benediction. In the front row, Thomas Ellison rose. The manila folder in his hands was thick as a brick. The soft click of his steps on the tile was the only sound. Every head turned from the altar to the aisle.
Reverend Donald, I believe you've worn the robe long enough this morning. Please, have a seat.
The pastor's mouth opened, then closed. His face flushed, then paled, as if a switch had been thrown. Thomas opened the folder. The first page was a spreadsheet, figures glowing amber in the stained glass light.
For 6 months, I've audited every dollar that passed through this church. What I found cannot wait another minute.
Karen's clenched fist loosened. The program fluttered to her lap.
He's going to say it. Whatever is in that folder, he's going to say it for all of them.
The sanctuary, which had been a tomb of shame, now bristled with a terrible electric focus.
From the building fund, $12,000 to a Bahamian resort for a timeshare. Signed and approved by Reverend Donald.
A ripple of shock passed through the congregation like a cold wind through a field of wheat.
A Lexus lease, 742 billions each month, paid from that same sacred fund untouched by the board.
Stop this! You're poisoning the flock with lies! This is an outrage!
18 monthly transfers, each $1,500 to a woman named Meredith. Not a dime to your wife.
So they all see him now. Not the shepherd, the wolf.
Thomas passed duplicate folders across the front row. One to Elder Johnson, one to Elder Williams. Elder Johnson's hands trembled as he scanned the highlighted pages. Elder Williams set her jaw.
I have done my duty as head deacon. The rest is in God's hands.
Pastor Donald remained motionless, a pillar of salt, his congregation staring not in reverence but in horror. The benediction never came. Reverend Donald wrenched off his microphone and stormed down the side aisle, his robe snapping like a flag in a gale. Behind him, the sanctuary dissolved into a low roar of whispers and the scrape of shoes on tile. In the parking lot, Jacob finally found his voice, his tie now hanging loose and forgotten.
Mom, what just happened? Why did Mr. Thomas have all those papers?
I think. The truth finally caught up with the man who tried to bury us.
Emergency board meeting, tomorrow 10 a.m. Bring everything, Thomas. This church will have an accounting.
She turned to Karen, who was helping Olivia into the car, and gave a single, firm nod.
Thank you, Thomas. Maybe some things can be put right. Maybe not all silences are complicity.
By sundown, every elder had a copy of the folder. Monday's meeting would decide the fate of First Baptist. That night, Karen sat in her kitchen, still wearing the cream dress, a faded newspaper clipping of Pastor Donald's last anniversary service before her on the table.
He led this church for 20 years, and tonight he is hiding in a parsonage full of locked doors.
A knock, soft and hesitant, broke the silence. Linda Donald stood on the step, her cardigan buttoned wrong, mascara tracing rivers down her cheeks.
Karen, I had to come. You deserve to know what I did. A few months ago, Marcus called the parsonage. He asked about you, and I told him. I told him about Westby. I told him you were happy.
Happy, Linda? You gave him the ammunition to destroy my reputation.
I knew he would use it. I knew, and I still couldn't stop myself. I also knew about the money, the timeshare, the car, but I was too terrified to speak.
I will pray for you, Linda, but I cannot trust you. Maybe in time we can start again.
Linda left, her sobs swallowed by the night. Karen closed the door and leaned her forehead against the cool wood. Tomorrow she would speak to the board. Tonight she would not break. Monday morning, the Board of Elders convened in the cramped conference room. Thomas placed the folder on the table like a judge's gavel.
I have itemized 37 unauthorized withdrawals, each one traced to Reverend Donald's signatures.
The timeshare was a planned retreat for the deacons. The Lexus was a lease for church visits. Your twisting intentions.
And the monthly transfers to Meredith? Was she handling the catering for this imaginary retreat?
A muscle in Donald's jaw twitched. He had no answer.
Karen, the board would like to hear from you. What has this year been like under his ministry?
I sat in that pew while he took my private pain and turned it into a sermon. My children heard their mother called a scandal.
Her voice trembled but never broke. The elders leaned forward, their expressions hardening.
This is outrageous. She's just a bitter divorcee.
Elder Williams raised a hand, silencing him. The room felt smaller. A motion to vote was inevitable, but not yet made. Elder Johnson rose, his cane tapping the floor. He called for a vote.
All in favor of removing Reverend Donald from his pastoral duties, effective immediately, signify by saying aye.
The ayes were 7, a unanimous chorus that left no room for appeal.
You'll regret this. I built this church from 40 families.
2 deacons stepped forward, their presence a quiet wall. Donald's robe snagged on the doorframe as they guided him out.
It's done. 23 years of his voice, and now just his footsteps.
Thomas closed the folder with a soft exhale, the sound of a long-held breath released. Outside, a handful of reporters had gathered on the church steps, their notepads catching the morning sun.
Now the whole town will know. Not the version he told the truth.
The boardroom emptied, chairs scraped back, but the real work of healing had not yet begun. A congregational meeting was announced for next Sunday. The next few days, a gentle interim pastor led the services while the congregation searched for permanent ground. In the parking lot after Wednesday prayer, a woman approached Karen, her eyes downcast.
You don't have to apologize. We all were afraid.
Karen, the board would like you to consider heading a new outreach initiative for the food bank.
A leadership role. After being the cautionary tale, I'm not sure my heart is ready.
That evening, Jacob and Olivia shared their day around the dinner table.
A couple guys actually stood up for me today. Said their moms were talking about how brave you are.
Some people still stare, but it's different. Like they're sorry, not judging.
On Thursday, Karen drove to the local food bank. She walked the aisles of canned goods, imagining what this place could become.
This is where the healing starts. Not in sermons in service.
The following Sunday, the sanctuary was packed. The board stood before the congregation, somber and resolute.
We have documented over $80,000 in misused funds. The building fund is depleted, but the discretionary fund remains. The board proposes that every cent be redirected to the local food bank, which Pastor Donald had blocked for years.
She nodded toward Karen, who rose from the 5th pew, her hands steady.
6 months ago I was the cautionary tale, but a quiet deacon with a folder showed us that truth can still walk through these doors. I ask you to support this. Not for me, for the families who will eat because we chose to do what is right.
Murmurs of assent rippled. Elder Johnson called for a vote. The vote was nearly unanimous. Only 2 dissented.
Will you chair the new outreach committee and lead the food bank initiative?
Karen stood. Yes. Applause broke out across the sanctuary. Weeks later, the food bank was alive with the sound of tape guns and sorting. Karen moved through the volunteers like she had done this for years.
Canned vegetables on the left, pasta on the right. We're making family packs today.
Jacob and Olivia worked side by side, their earlier shame replaced by an easy rhythm.
Mom, can we do this every Saturday? It feels good, normal.
The front door chimed and Thomas Ellison stepped in. No folder this time, just a small envelope.
I came to see the miracle. You've given this church back its heartbeat.
I just pointed the money in the right direction. Thomas, you're the one who found it. This peace. It doesn't erase what happened, but it feels like something earned.
She looked at her children laughing with an elderly volunteer and smiled. A real smile, unforced. The food bank hummed with purpose, and for the first time in months, Karen felt the weight on her chest begin to lift. One evening, Karen unlocked her mailbox and found a plain white envelope, no stamp, no return address. Thank you for being brave enough to stay in the pew. I never saw $1 of that money, but I knew. I'm sorry, Linda.
Linda. She really did know. And she was more trapped than I ever was.
She read the words twice, then a third time, before she realized she was holding her breath.
Lord, give Linda the courage she thought she lost. She wasn't my enemy. She was a hostage.
She opened her grandmother's Bible and slid the note between the pages, a small peace offering. Then she walked to the window and looked out at the church steeple, silhouetted against a fading sky.
Maybe forgiveness is just deciding not to pass the pain forward.
The sun dipped below the tree line, and the bell tower stood silent. The worst was truly over. Karen turned from the window, the kitchen warm with the scent of lavender and the quiet certainty of a new day. A few weeks later, the church basement was set with folding chairs and a simple cake. A quiet gathering for a quiet man.
Thomas Ellison served this church for 30 years, but never has a single folder meant more.
Karen stepped forward holding a slim box. The room stilled.
For 6 months you carried a folder that weighed more than anyone knew. This is from all of us.
Thomas unwrapped a fountain pen, its barrel etched with a single word, integrity.
I just kept the books, nothing more.
His voice cracked, and for a long moment, the quiet accountant simply held the pen and blinked.
We never know who is quietly holding the line for all of us.
The small crowd applauded, and Thomas Ellison, who had never wanted a spotlight, found himself in the warmest one. That night, Karen drove home knowing that some heroes speak through ledgers and live in the margins. A month later, the sanctuary filled again with familiar faces and the scent of fresh flowers. The new pastor's sermon was gentle about forgiveness, justice, and rebuilding. Karen sat in the same fifth pew, her head high, Jacob and Olivia holding her hands.
A few months ago, I could barely breathe in this room. Now I am planted.
During the offering, an elder stepped forward and announced with quiet joy that First Baptist's food bank had now served its 500th family. The congregation broke into applause, a sound that had been absent for a long time. Jacob squeezed his mother's hand. Olivia leaned against her shoulder.
Not my victory. Theirs. Ours.
Karen looked up at the stained glass window, sunlight pouring through in ribbons of gold and crimson.
I stayed. That was my only weapon. And it was enough.
The closing hymn rose, and for the first time in years, Karen sang the words and felt them land in her chest like a promise kept. The last box was taped, the last shelf straightened. The food bank exhaled into silence.
Mom, are you okay? You keep looking at that old photo.
A picture from before the divorce. I don't miss that life. I just marvel that I survived it.
She took one last look at the food bank, a place that had become a sanctuary. Then she locked the door.
Look at the steeple. It's got that gold light on it.
It does. Maybe it's been there all along. I just couldn't see it.
The three of them stood there a moment, the day's labor settling like a good kind of ache.
This is what healing looks like. Not a thunderclap, just a quiet evening with the people I love.
She slid into the driver's seat, her children chattering softly in the back. The engine hummed, and they pulled away. The church steeple stood sentinel in the twilight, and Karen Reeves drove home, whole. In the quiet of his modest office, Thomas Ellison slid open the bottom drawer of his old desk. The manila folder, its edges worn soft from months of handling, lay beneath a stack of bulletins. He lifted it out. The weight wasn't in the paper, it was in the truth it had carried. His eyes moved to a small framed photo on the shelf. The church as it looked 30 years ago, a simple white chapel.
Before the additions, before the scandals, just a place people came to pray.
He slid the folder into a long-term storage box alongside old annual reports and yellowed minutes. The cardboard lid settled with a soft thud. Thomas exhaled, a long breath he hadn't known he was holding.
The books are balanced. The truth did its work. Now I can return to being just the CPA.
Outside, the church bells began to ring, a steady, measured peal that drifted through the open window. Thomas stood at the window, watched the steeple, and allowed himself a small, quiet smile. On a warm Saturday, the church lawn was set with folding tables. The smell of fried chicken and lemonade filled the air. Karen arrived with a casserole, Jacob and Olivia carrying pies, her lavender brooch bright in the sun. Thomas stood by the dessert table, lemonade in hand, listening to Elder Johnson's tale of church picnics past.
Patricia, did you ever think we'd see this day?
Honestly, I prayed for many things, but a food bank chair was my wildest hope.
Jacob and Olivia played cornhole with other youth, their laughter ringing. Families who once looked away now sat together, breaking bread. The air was lighter. Karen looked across the lawn, the steeple, the people, the man who held the folder, and felt the circle close. The camera pulled up, revealing the white church, the vibrant lawn, the town beyond in golden light. The frame held, then gently faded to black. The sanctuary was empty, the pews in perfect stillness. Sunlight streamed through the stained glass, amber and rose across the floor. No choir, no sermon, only the silence of a room that had witnessed both wounding and healing. No one present but the light. In the following year, the food bank distributed over 10,000 meals. Karen Reeves still ran it. Her office was a corner of the old fellowship hall, her faith restored not by power, but by one deacon's quiet integrity. A beam of light fell across the fifth pew, the same seat where she had once frozen while others looked away. The cross above the altar glowed, unbroken. Outside, the town stirred, the bells silent because this moment needed no sound. The camera lingered on the stained glass window, the colors bleeding softly into black. Slowly, the image blurred and surrendered to darkness. Only the memory of a distant hymn remained, a promise kept in ledger lines and loaves of bread.